Welcome to Dance to Heal. I'm your host, Jenny C. Cohen. Join me as I share stories of how dance and movement can bring healing in a way that is safe and tailored to your life. I'm a cancer survivor, mother of two, and an award-winning performer who found that movement was vital to my recovery. I created Dance to Heal Wellness and also authored the best-selling book, Outside in Recovery, Dancing My Way Back to Myself After Breast Cancer. I will bring new techniques to help you on your dance journey and healing path. Are you ready to move? Dance to Heal starts now. Welcome to Dance to Heal podcast. I am your host and guest today. I had a special agenda lined up for this weekend. For this month. Because once you figure it out from last week's episode on how to be more present and aware of messages from your body, back and forth between mind and body, how do you stay consistent with your self-care? Let me ask you something. Have you ever spoken with your doctor about even having a regular breast checkup and or GYN gynecological visit when you are a little older, maybe early 20s, late teens, depending on how you were raised? How early in your lifetime do you begin the self-care knowledge of having conversations with your doctor, no matter what gender your doctor is? How open, how comfortable are you asking them about how soon you can start any of those type of examinations? Just because you are not necessarily active doesn't mean you do not want to learn more about it. Let me explain something. It's never too early to learn about a self-examination. Okay? You can look those up in YouTube. I don't need to explain those to you right now, only because I think that some of our time here can be best spent in some of my tips on how to make sure you're a self-advocate for yourself, and also how do you prepare yourself emotionally and mentally for some of those types of visits. All right, because those will affect how much of any type of perceived or experienced trauma can happen from even wellness visits. So truth talk. Before I was diagnosed with breast cancer in my mid-40s, in my earlier 30s, at that time, because the tissue in my breast was denser, I had a doctor back then who started me on mammograms. And so I had a mammogram done in my mid to early 30s. And then because I had children who one of them developed an autoimmune disease, type 1 diabetes, I became very involved and forgot about my self-care. So I never went back after that first 1 or 2 mammograms because I was consumed in the care of my child. Are you a sandwich generation where you're caring for children and also caring for parents? Or are you dealing with a partner who has been ill or is in the middle of being ill or recovering from a traumatic accident out of the blue? I mean, all this has happened to me before. The last thing, oftentimes, we forget to take care of ourselves. Okay, this specifically is not gender based, meaning you can be someone who is more of a father figure and neglecting your self-care, because there are necessary checkups you should be doing with your doctor. And specifically, breast cancer is not only women. Men can get it too. I know, mic drop moment, right? So for you to make an appointment to speak with your doctor about something as simple as how soon, and sometimes it is affected by what's covered in your insurance plan. Sometimes you need to still advocate, even if you have no history of breast cancer, because more and more now, younger women are without a gene handed down. More and more women and men are getting breast cancer. Okay, so the self-examinations, I really do advise you look up on the internet how to do those. You want to schedule those into your what is it, the scheduling thing, or even in your phone to remind you to do it once a month. Two, were you to be an advocate for yourself, and then you make sure, right? You make sure you remind the doctor how soon can you get one. Again, I'm not advocating for those of us who worry about being perceived as hypochondriacs, right? People who are worried about being sick all the time. However, oftentimes we will ignore signs that we need to be seen until it becomes a scream, until it becomes a real illness. And I really do truly believe oftentimes our bodies are whispering, and we just have to learn to listen so we can head off catastrophes. Yes? While you're waiting in the interim, let's say it is a Tuesday and you have a visit for a checkup or your first mammogram in a month. One of the things that you can become much more comfortable is the fact that if you've never had a mammogram, here's the thing. You're not allowed to wear your bra in there. So you are pretty much uncovered during the breast mammogram. Okay? And so that's something that you want to get comfortable with, because the tech person who has to do the mammogram actually has to lift up that part of your body into the machine and put you in certain positions. How do you prepare for something like that, guys? Here's some tips. If you're someone who's not used to normally even um, putting your hands on yourself in that area, you can start to do a little bit of just lifting them up occasionally besides taking them in and out of clothing so that they're comfortable being touched. Does that make sense? Here's what's really interesting that I feel very few people talk about, and I really want to make sure that you are aware. Not being prepared for this may be what's preventing you sometimes from scheduling that necessary visit, okay? If you are not used to being touched, you want to incorporate some forms of self-touch so that before the appointment, you're gearing yourself up to know what that feels like. If you're not comfortable, you may go into a freeze response or a fawn response, meaning you're super friendly and super joking and super accommodating because you're trapped there. You really need this medical procedure. I'm really, honestly, I'm a culprit. My hands are up right now, folks, for those of you listening in on the audio. I am the world's best comedian and philosopher, and I always win the best customer award. I just raised my hand. I always I lower my hand. I am guilty of this very same thing, and I'm going to give myself grace because it is one of my coping mechanisms to go into a form of fawn response. I become very entertaining for the tech because it is very traumatic for someone to be putting that part of my body into a machine where it's being mashed between two surfaces because they're really trying to flatten the tissue in your breast so they can get a clear image. Okay, that is the irony of it all. To keep us, quote unquote, my fingers doing quotation marks in the air, to keep us safe, they have come up with rather invasive ways, and oftentimes, dare I say, rather traumatic ways to keep us safe. To keep us safe, we end up being a little bit traumatized. Does it make sense? Yeah, you understanding? And that's just so ironic, right? If you've not had a GYN visit, those are super important. However, to let you people know who've never been to an internal lower body examination, oftentimes you don't have any underwear on and you're lying on a table with your legs spread open on stirrups and you're supposed to relax. Again, the quotation marks in the hand, in the air. You're supposed to relax while a stranger is looking at your bottom parts, right? And then certain times there's certain visits they don't warn you about, and they go into parts of our body that we've never had uh, examination things put in or hand parts put in. And I want you to have a conversation with your doctor first, especially if it's your first time with a doctor. This is really, really important, okay? No matter how many of these visits you have of the lower parts of your body, keeping this PG-13, you all, you still want to talk about what type of examination they're going to do if it's your first time ever and or if it's your first time with a doctor. I once had a visit with a doctor in New York City. I was recently married. Not remarried. I was recently married. It's very interesting that I'm studying all my words because this topic is something I want to get comfortable speaking about because no one spoke about this to me or I never heard it on the air. And I really wish someone had talked about it before because I could have been so much better informed going into this visit. So this new doctor, female GYN doctor, I thought she would be great because she's another woman. I'm a woman, right? What could go wrong? Well, I didn't realize that to check my ovaries, she does the methodology where she goes through your butthole. And so all of a sudden, I am being examined in a way I'd never been examined before and completely, I went to freeze response. It took me a number of years to realize that she never asked for consent and she never warned me. And I had never ever had a doctor do that in that type of examination. And I had already been going to those type of doctors maybe 5, 6 years. So it was quite a shock for me. And it really triggered me. And I didn't even know. I didn't even know for a number of years. And the better prepared you are, you want to have a doctor that's going to allow you and is comfortable for you to ask questions. That's mandatory, folks. And I'm so sorry, doctors who are tired of us us clients asking so many darn questions. Please bear with us because I promise you, I, for one, if you're a doctor that is patient with my questions, I'm a fan for life. I'm a fan for life because you understand I have anxiety about it and I want to better understand it so that the relationship between us is better. Okay? I really urge you, listeners and watchers on my YouTube channel, start putting out there that these are the type of relationships you want with your caregivers. Okay? And if you go back to episode 1 and go back over the muscle testing and even using the left hand, right hand questions, and then using the 5 senses to get present in your body around visits like this, I promise you it will go better. It will go better. And then if things are starting to go south in your body, you'll know. And you can get treatment and care and eyes on and set up your team sooner than later. True story, folks. I've had more than one friend have a wonky, questionable thing happen, and they postponed getting answers because they didn't want to know and or they were too busy. No one is ever too busy to put themselves first in their self-care. And this has included friends, personal friends that I know personally, okay, who, one, either found a lump and kind of postponed it and waited and they were not the squeaky wheel they needed to be. Or two, they had cancer and then some other symptoms popped up and they kept hoping it was something else and waited too long. I am not fear mongering. I don't want you to be petrified of every little thing that could happen. One of the best ways to gain control is to be in touch with yourself. Times when I don't feel good and I do a muscle test, it's just because you didn't hydrate, Jenny, is what my body tells me. And I think back over the day, oh, you're right. I didn't have my needed hydration methodology. So I have a really good friend locally here. There's a shout out to Isha Athletics here in the Salt Lake City area. She's amazing, and she does my lymphatic massage. I met her 2 years ago post-op, and she's been phenomenal in my self-care. And we had numerous conversations, and I'm going to show you my sippy cup full of liquid IV. And I have liquid IV in here, this giant bottle of water with also some cherry juice, a tiny bit of it in there, because I'm prone to UTI, so I do the cherry juice to help with that. Anywho, we've had conversations. I get the liquid IV in powder form that is sugar-free, and I drink at least only one of these a day with extra water for absorption. Also, I will also have a small one of those single serving packets of the liquid IV. So Pedialyte, liquid IV, no sugar. They're all sugar-free. And that keeps me hydrated because on top of that, I also drink a ton of hot water, warm water. I have these little single serving water boilers, and I'm sipping that and drinking that all day long. That is something I've discovered through a lot of muscle testing, breath work, journaling, and this is what my body tells me I need. Why? Specifically, I am post some pretty gnarly chemotherapy, and my body is still processing. We lost a lot of electrolytes. I say we, because my body and I, we've had, and I'm really working towards regaining my body's trust, right? Because I didn't even really ask enough questions about my chemotherapy when I started. I just knew I want to go with this Western method of medication and treatment because they were guaranteeing me a 95% chance of living, and I just went the full course, and I damaged my body. My body had to go through so much pain to get to this point of being cancer-free almost 10 years, right? However, I have discovered in this returning to myself, my body's pissed. And it's okay. I mean, I'm sorry, body. Now I'm really making self-care a priority, and I am slowly regaining trust. So let me ask you something before I end today's episode. Forget about it for a second, how much you trust your body. How much does your body trust you? How often do you check in with your body and ask your body, am I taking care of you in the ways you need? How often do you listen when your body answers? I really want you to hear what I'm saying to you. It's not a guilt trip. I'm giving you grace. Give yourself grace. Just know with the listening and watching of this episode, you were meant to hear this and see this today. Take stock of your body's messages and make sure you're immediately listening. Now is the time for you to reestablish this relationship. All right, folks, until next time, next week, we're going to talk about, for those of you who do end up with a positive diagnosis, you have some tips and tricks of how to set up your life before, during, and after treatment. All right, I love you. See you next time. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to Dance to Heal with Jenny C. Cohen. Come back next time to hear stories of recovery through movement and learn more ways that you can move your body. To work with me and continue your journey, visit OutsideInRecovery.com. Are you ready to move?